Hello, lovelies. Cory here. Welcome back to Wilder Woman. I have a very, very special unboxing today because I repurchased the first tarot deck that I ever bought when I was 15 years old, okay, in 2000. So 19 years later, I've rebought this deck. The original I gifted to one of my nephews. It's with him. He's working with it. But I felt like I wanted this deck back in my life again. And I gifted, when did I gift this to Chris? I gave each of my nephews tarot decks in 2015. This was at the time that, of course, you know, they have me around, right? Been their aunt for 10 years. And I don't know why they didn't think to ask me, but they had heard that, you know, you can't buy your first tarot deck, that it has to be gifted to you. And, you know, I sat down with them and I'm like, well, your aunt's a professional tarot reader. I'm a little insulted that you didn't come to me to begin with, first of all. Although I wasn't a pro reader at the time. No, again, 2015. But I had been reading since 2000. I said, what the hell? Why didn't you come ask me? Yes, absolutely, you can buy your own tarot deck. But in the spirit of tradition, we'll just gift them to you right now. And so I had them select decks out of my collection. I forget what one of them chose, but one chose this deck. And the third one chose a Lord of the Rings tarot deck that I had had for a number of years as well. So, dun 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 dun, what deck is this that you speak of? This deck actually came out the year that I first bought it, and that is the Celtic Dragon Tarot by DJ Conway and Lisa Hunt. And it is back with me after not being with me for, God, I think it was even before 2015. We had just moved into this house. So this was like 2013, 2014? My God, it's been at least 5 years. Yep, it's been 5 years that I've not had this deck. And now it's back in my life. So we're just going to crack this puppy open. Already I can tell you what's different, you know, in the last 19 years since I first bought this deck, is that the edition that's being printed now is in a different box. The box artwork is the same, okay? This is how the original box looked, okay? But what's different is that this isn't a flip box, magnetic flip box. Whereas the box that I originally purchased was a gigantic tuck box. I kid you not. This size tuck box. Can you imagine? And that box I kept this entire time. My nephew has it that way. So he has the box, the book, and the deck. So you guys, look at that. Ooh, okay. And we do have that dragon. I can never pronounce that correctly. Triskel? Oh, well. The little 3 Celtic spirals. Words are hard, guys. Okay. Book looks exactly the same as I remember it. My goodness. Y'all. Oh, my heart. And especially with the passing of DJ. That hurts my heart. The insert is actually the same. So we would pull this tray out from the duck box, and then pull the deck out, okay? So this is pretty much all the same as it was when it first came out in 2000, but, you know, we now have a flip box instead of a gigantic tuck box. So that is cool because this way sturdier than that flimsy tuck box. And here's the deck, you guys. Nothing has changed, and I love that. Oh, where are my scissors when I need them? I was not prepared. But I really wanted to do this video because I just got this deck, and I knew if I didn't freaking do an unboxing today, it was just gonna be ripped open, and y'all were never gonna get a video. That's just how this was gonna go, okay? So, pop this bad boy open. Oh, my heart. Oh, you guys. I remember getting this home at 15 and just spending hours looking at all of these cards. Same Llewellyn cardstock. Okay, really great riffle shuffle, you guys. I don't want to riffle shuffle it now. I will in a bit, but solid cards in my opinion. Let's try and do a little bit of a walkthrough. Magician card gets me every time. And this, you know, part of the reason why I wanted to get this deck again is because DJ wrote a lot about dragons. And I feel like her connection to dragons is just, it reminds me so much of growing up with Anne McCaffrey's books and reading those. I don't know how many of you guys read Anne McCaffrey. That High Priest card. Instead of the Hierophant, we have the High Priest, FYI. And these dragons, it's just, Lisa Hunt did a brilliant job with the art in this deck. And every other dragon deck that I have come across since then has been like a massive disappointment. It's like they all cannot live up to this deck right here. And I feel like in this death card set the standard for me for comparing every single death card after it. The only other one that has hit me in the heart the way that this one has is the Phoenix Death card in the Shadowscapes Tarot, which is probably why that one was the only deck that unseated this one as my primary everyday tarot deck for myself. Because you guys, this was my deck for years. All I had was this deck. This is what I started with. This is what I fell in love with. This deck went with me on trips to Ohio, to Nevada, visiting family, like everything. And look at that deck, the shedding, just that rebirth, the pain there, but the light as well. Like that perfectly encapsulated the message of the death card for me. And like I said, other cards have come close, but every single one I've compared to this first card. And it's just, this was the right time. This was the right time for me to have this deck back. Oh, this moon card too. Oh, cannot. Look at that sun. Oh, cannot get enough. I think we all have first loves that we just compare everything else to. This is mine in the tarot world. This is my first one. And 19 years later, y'all, still compare everything else to it. Oh. No regrets in giving the original deck up. Absolutely. It belongs with my nephew right now. And seeing him go through his own tarot journey, I got him connected to Benabel Wen's work. He purchased Holistic Tarot. He's going through it now. I really wish that, I'm a little bit jealous, because I wish that Holistic Tarot had been around the time that I first started working with tarot. Really all I had was this book. And we're going to dive into this book here in a minute, because oof, it's a solid book. But don't you get like a Dragon Riders of Pern like vibe off of this deck? Because I did. And this was at a time when, again, I was reading those books. Like, my entire altar was just covered with dragon iconography. My mom painted dragons. She was actually there at the store when I bought this, because I was like hemming and hawing over it. And she's like, get it. And she gave me the money to buy it. So technically she bought this deck for me, but I handed the money to the cashier. Oh, that Queen of Swords. Y'all, that is some Daenerys Targaryen energy right there. And then we have our cups. Like, if you love dragons, this is like the Dragon Tarot. In fact, I'll show you guys this. Woo! Excuse me. Just jumping up here. This is one of the dragon ceramics that my mother painted. And I had in the house growing up. And I took it with me after my mom passed away. And it now sits in this sacred space with me. Do you love that? My mom was a freaking phenomenal painter. And she really went to town on this dragon. I have a number of her ceramics, actually, that I still have and kind of litter the house. But so that you can see, dragons were kind of a thing in my family. So having Celtic Dragon Tarot. Just cannot get enough. And just the different types of dragons that are included in here too are really great. It's just this great mixture of fantasy and fun. It's also got a very D&D feel, right? So that is the Celtic Dragon Tarot. And like I said, you guys, this is a great one. This will riffle shuffle really well. Woo! If I can riffle shuffle. practice shuffling, y'all. Oh, thanks to the car accident. My shuffling just ain't what it used to be. There we go. That was a lot more satisfying shuffle. But this deck, freaking still amazing. Even after 5 years, you know, seeing it again. And this book, like I said, it's a pretty solid book. So DJ does talk a little bit. Yeah, this is the 18th printing. Copyright 1999, Lisa Hunt. So came out in 99. I remember when it came out and was watching it since then. So actually, that would mean that I bought this at the beginning of 2000. So I was 14, actually. So 20 years later, buying this book again. So guys, forgive me. After it's been that long, like, who cares? when we're talking past a decade, does it really matter? No. So DJ covers the magic of dragons in here. You know, she talks about her affinity for them, why she loves them, why she wanted to work with them and create a deck around them. And then using the tarot deck, she does include spreads in here. This was my first introduction to the Celtic cross. She has short list of keywords in the beginning, associated elements as well, and then she goes through the actual major arcana. We have the card image on one side, and then on the other side we've got a little, she writes kind of a summary of the scene of what's going on with the card, and then below that is the paragraph that actually has the divinatory meaning. So, like, for example, the Hermit here. A large, very ancient dragon sits alone on a mountain ledge, a cave opening barely seen behind it. It is serenely studying an ancient book held open by its front claws. Another book and scrolls can be seen close to its side. The hermit dragon has deliberately sought solitude, for it knows that only when the conscious mind becomes quiet does true spiritual guidance make itself known and true understanding come. You know, and she continues through there. And then you actually have the divinatory meaning at the bottom. This card may represent a loner or one who prefers periods of solitude. A counselor or teacher gives you sound advice. Rethink your goals after giving the situation much thought, etc., etc. So I really enjoyed getting to know and reading about the story of the card. You know, when I first picked up this deck and was reading through, like, that was what fascinated me more and what gave me more inspiration as to the meaning of the card than just the basic divinatory meaning that was left there. Not that DJ didn't give you solid divinatory meanings. I mean, these are pretty solid. But the story that she tells of each card, that's, like, for me, was the meat of the book. And then, you know, after you go through everything, okay, so we have all of the meanings through here. Then we have tarot spreads. Okay, so there was the expanded Celtic cross. My goodness. Then Influence of the Elements was a 5-card one. I actually used the Celtic cross a lot in the beginning. My goodness, was that rough. And then I ended up moving over to 3-card spreads. Past Life, Present Influence, which is a 9-card spread. Path to a Goal, which is a 10-card spread. I mean, she gave you really intense layouts here. But then we have some Dragon Tarot candle spells in here. in chapter 6, which, you know, give you a lot of other juicy things to work on, which other guidebooks at the time weren't really giving you. And there's a lot in here, you guys, a ton of stuff. And I used some of this for years. It's been a hot minute. You know what? I'm going to use one of these spells here, specifically this one, and let you guys know how it goes. You know, 20 years later, see if, you know, my experience over the last 20 years has changed how I work these spells and the outcomes of them. Oh, then also some meditation she has as well. Meeting your special dragon, dragon of changes, dragon initiation. She also includes candle colors and uses in the back for when you do work those candle spells. So there's a lot to this than just the standard tarot guidebook. And I feel like a lot of indie decks have, you know, this missing from, you know, from their decks and their collections as a whole, if that makes sense. Like, for example, me gushing about this True Black Tarot, I mean, yes, the cardstock, the product itself is absolutely phenomenal, but I mean, this is the guidebook. And while it's a pretty meaty guidebook, you know, it's tiny print, and a lot of it really just talks about the artwork, you know, and there's not, other than the actual divinatory meanings, there's not really a whole lot here, right? I feel like these guidebooks were created more as an afterthought in a lot of the indie decks that I've been working with. At least it feels that way. For many of them, not all of them, but for a lot of them, the deck's the primary purpose. We have a lot more artists who are creating decks as a means of learning about the tarot themselves. And, you know, back in the 90s, we had witches creating tarot. We didn't have just, you know, animation artists creating tarot. We had occultists and witches and pagans creating tarot decks for other occultists and witches and pagans. And so a lot of information was included in the way that we would have worked with tarot beyond just the way tarot is explained now, which is a self-help tool. No, this was, you know, and for many of us still is, a ritual tool. You know, we don't just use this for self-exploration, but we use this in ritual, in spell work. We use tarot for divinatory purposes. And a lot of that's kind of lost in translation with the decks that are being created today. Many of them, again, not all of them. A good example of a solid one is Chris Ann's, you know, the Muse Tarot. She has created a really lyrical guidebook online that also has, you know, printed versions. They've got quote inspirations. I mean, the whole function or purpose behind creating this deck is to get you inspired. And creating her decks all relate to, again, sacred creators. So this is to spark that imagination. There's a very specific intent with why this was created, and the guidebook isn't an afterthought. It mirrors that. It has as much care and thought and magic infused in it as is with the deck. The same can be said for this book. You know, the purpose of DJ creating this was for you to really get in touch with the magic of dragons and working with dragon energy. This was a tarot companion for a lot of the dragon and Celtic magic books that DJ was putting out at the time. And you know, magic was just as much of a component and thought into the creation of this deck than, you know, tarot and traditional tarot meanings were, if that makes sense. So happy to have it back. And I'm happy that I had the opportunity to unbox it here for you guys. So, what was your first deck? Do you still have it? If you don't, why? Because there are also some earlier decks that I had after this one that I gave up because I didn't really connect with them. And, you know, that might be you. Maybe you didn't connect as strongly with your first deck as I did. That's okay too. Would just be interested to know what your original deck was and what journey you took with it. So if you feel so inclined, please let me know in the comments below. Obviously, no one's obligated to share, but it's always great when we open up this dialogue in the comments and I get to hear your guys' thoughts about everything. So that's it for this video. Thank you for hanging out with me again, you guys. And I hope that wherever you are having a fantastic day. All right. I will catch you in the next video, lovelies. Until then, blessed be.